everyone. This is Jackie Sgambati again. If you're new, I am the head cross-country coach at HPU, and I'm also the head strength coach for the athletes. And my background is in exercise, sports science, and nutrition. So I'm just sharing some things that I think are key, especially at this time right now. And since you all may be cooking more at home, we're going to do a PowerPoint on food safety. And at the end, I'll go over some things about organic versus inorganic foods. So I'm going to share the PowerPoint with you. And please use the chat button that you have and ask any questions that you might have during the PowerPoint. And I'll go through the slides. There's not too many, but I'll go through them. And if you have any questions, please put it in the chat. I will look at the chat and see if there's any questions. But food safety is really important right now because we do have the coronavirus going on and spreading pretty quickly, and it does stay on surfaces and spread through surfaces as well. So it's really important to be really conscious of when you're buying food, washing it before you eat it, how you handle it, washing your hands before you cook, washing your hands before you touch your food. So we're going to go over some foodborne illnesses and then some organic versus inorganic foods. So first, foodborne illness. Eating foods with bacteria can definitely make you sick. I know we all know someone that has had food poisoning, and it's actually gotten more common over the years because of the way we choose to eat our food. So I'll talk about that a little bit. So food poisoning causes nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, fever, and it's usually within 12 hours to 5 days after consumption. Of course, most people, it's within a very short period of time. It can be even within 4 to 5 hours. So it unfortunately can be fatal in children or at-risk people, especially the elderly. And the reason is because you don't, as a child, you tend not to really build that defense against the bacteria in your system yet. So it can be dangerous for children and then the elderly for the same reason, because they lose some of that. As you get older, you've probably taken a lot of medications that may take away the effect of your immune system to fight that bacteria. So if you've taken a lot of antibiotics, for instance, your system won't fight these bacteria as strongly. So salmonella is a common one, and this is often caused by raw or undercooked foods, eggs, and unpasteurized milk. And all milk in the US is pasteurized, but you know, you can get your hands on unpasteurized milk from farms. So you do have to be careful with that, as well as stuff that's made with possible unpasteurized milk. Raw and undercooked foods is the biggest culprit. E. coli is especially found in undercooked beef, ground beef, roast beef, but it is also possible in fruits, vegetables, and yogurt. E. coli is also a common one. Listeria is the next most common, and that's often found in soft cheeses that's made with unpasteurized milk. So if you buy international or foreign cheese, sometimes it can be made with unpasteurized milk, and you just need to be careful because that can cause listeria. So those are some of the foodborne illnesses that we see most often in the US. And these can all be prevented if we follow these safety guidelines that the FDA typically tells us to care for our food and how to eat and prepare our food so that we are at less risk of getting these foodborne illnesses. So select your produce carefully. You want to make sure that the produce looks good. Yeah. So I know we probably all have our favorite grocery stores or markets, or even our farmers markets where we get our produce, and you just really need to make sure that it's fresh and it isn't old. You don't know if it's been sitting in the sun for a long time, and sometimes heat can cause bacteria. So you need to be careful of that. So select your produce and wash it thoroughly. washing it thoroughly, not just rinsing it with water sometimes, but just a little soap and water can really help wash some of the bacteria off if there are any there. Drink only pasteurized milk and juice, which, like I just said, everything that's sold in the US is pasteurized. But again, you can get your hands on things that local farms that have unpasteurized milk. And some people get quite used to drinking unpasteurized milk because it's, you know, they grew up on the farm and they're used to drinking it. But for the average person, drink only pasteurized and milk and juice. Don't eat raw eggs or raw fish. So this is a safety guideline. And I know people still do it. People eat raw eggs and they don't have a problem with it, but you really can get salmonella from raw eggs. Raw fish, the reason we actually have more foodborne illnesses today is because there's been a common trend with eating raw fish. For example, sushi. Sushi's become very, very popular. In Hawaii, it's extremely popular. And if it's not of a certain grade or if it's not prepared carefully and washed carefully, you can get very, very sick. Keep perishables cold or frozen. So when you cook something, right after you cook it, you should refrigerate it. So you cook it, you eat it. What you don't eat, you should refrigerate. If you leave it out overnight, you are eating it the next day. Anything that you will not be eating soon, you can freeze. A lot of things do freeze for quite a long time. So just make sure you're keeping your perishables cold or frozen. And if you open, for instance, if you open a can of pineapple, which Hawaiians don't usually eat canned pineapple, but if we open a can of pineapple, for instance, the acid in that canned pineapple, the acid can wash into the can. And if you open the can and you don't finish the pineapple and you just leave the opened can in the fridge, you don't want to eat that. Don't ever put opened cans in the fridge and eat something canned out of the fridge. Cook all meats thoroughly. This is common sense, but a lot of people in restaurants want to order rare meats. And you'll notice that a lot of the restaurants will say the lowest they'll cook is medium rare. So most menus also stated on their menu that, cooking or eating undercooked meats can cause illness. So they have to put that for liability reasons, but a lot of people do like the more raw meat. So just be careful with that. And it's best to order it and cook it thoroughly so that you don't see a lot of pink in your meat. And use a thermometer when you're cooking too. Use a thermometer to gauge the temperature of your meat so that you know that it's cooked properly. This is one that I think is so useful, and I don't think a lot of people do, and everyone needs to do it. If you are not doing this, you've got to start doing it. Use separate cutting boards and utensils for meat and produce. So if you are cutting meat and preparing meat, you should have a meat cutting board. All your other produce, your fruits and vegetables, should be done on a completely different cutting board. Don't ever use the meat cutting board for your fruits and vegetables. And that goes with utensils you're using too. If you're using a knife to cut your meat, do not use that same knife to cut your fruit and vegetables. They have great cutting boards that are color coded now. So if you go to certain stores, you can see like a red cutting board will be for meat, a green one will be for vegetables, a white one will be for fruit. So look for those, because that can save you from getting sick, just using separate cutting boards and utensils. Wash and rinse your dishes, utensils, and food preparation surfaces thoroughly. So this is, if you don't have a dishwasher, which a lot of people don't, dishwashers can really, really heat up the utensils and the dishes, which really clean them. But if you're hand washing, you really need to make sure that you're washing it thoroughly and you're not leaving any of that stuff on your dishes and utensils so that the next time you eat, you're getting sick. Food prep surfaces are also really important to clean, especially if you're using like a cutting board or a butcher block that's part of your kitchen surface. You want to make sure that you wash that thoroughly. Washing your hands thoroughly before and after handling food. I think we're all very conscious of that now, more so now with coronavirus than we ever have been before, and store foods properly. So like I said, if you cook food and you eat it and then you have leftovers, please make sure you put the leftovers in a safe container and put it in the fridge right away. And if you have meat that's in the fridge that you don't eat within a few days, you should put it in the freezer if it's going to freeze okay. Another thing that I want to comment on too is microwaving your foods. If you keep your foods in plastic Tupperware or even styrofoam, and you take a to-go item and put it in the microwave in the plastic container or the styrofoam, the chemicals in that styrofoam and in that plastic Tupperware can seep into your food, and that's not good either. So it's never good to microwave plastic Tupperware or styrofoam. So remember that as well. That's a good tip. So other issues in food safety and technology, we have a lot of food additives today. These are used by manufacturers just to improve the quality and taste of the food, and even sometimes just the color. And of course, you guys all know that there's additives and preservatives in your food to increase shelf life. So the more processed your food, the more additives and preservatives are in it. So the fresher, the better, because that's less additive. Anything that is red in color or purple in color, it's not natural unless you're eating beets. Beets, obviously, tomatoes, they're naturally red, peppers. But if you're for instance, Gatorade, they pump additives and color into the Gatorade because it's not all it's not all those colors. They came up with all these colors and different flavors just to sell more Gatorade. So you need to be a really good consumer and understand that a lot of the color in your food is added. So if you're going to drink Gatorade or any kind of drink or any kind of sports drink for that matter, it should be the clearer the better. So the dark red and the dark purples have a lot of food coloring in them. So some common additives: sugar, salt, corn syrup, monosodium glutamate, so that's MSG, sulfites, and nitrates. And these aren't all healthy. So we all have heard about all the processed sugar that they put in our foods to make it taste better. And this is very common today because people like sweet, and the more sugar they can taste, the better. And if you're adding sugar to your drinks, it's best to just add pure cane sugar. There's so many different sugar options out there: Splenda and aspartame and stevia and all that stuff. And stevia is found to be okay, but the aspartame and the Splenda is all, there's been lots of studies that show it's not a very good alternative. So I always tell people the more pure the sugar, the better. Just use less of it. Salt, of course, people like to add salt to their food, and we do add salt to a lot of our foods to keep it on the shelf longer. So your canned foods have a lot of salt in them, and your meats have a lot of salt in them, especially if they're dried out. And actually drying out your food and taking the water out of your food prevents a lot of bacteria from seeping in, because bacteria needs water to survive. So drying meat, for instance, your beef jerky, that's very, very dried meat, and the water is sucked out of all of it and a lot of salt put in so that the bacteria can come out of it. So corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup, not a good additive. And they've gotten very creative now when making food and doing alcohol syrup and sugar syrup instead of corn syrup. But anything high fructose is processed. So that's not something you want in your food. So you should stay away from it as much as you can. MSG. This has caused a lot of issues with, especially mothers don't want their children eating foods with MSG. So you can look for that monosodium glutamate. Look for that in your ingredients on your food label and see if that's in it. And that does mean that there's a lot of additive in that food. Some people do have greater sensitivity to additives, and you definitely should avoid them if you do have those. A lot of people actually have a huge sensitivity to MSG. So they're allergic to MSG, and they know they have to be very careful and make sure that that ingredient isn't in their food. Irradiation is used to kill microorganisms and prolong shelf life as well. But the data is kind of limited on this. And now we have bioengineered foods. if you guys look at some of your fruits and vegetables, you might notice that your blueberries are bigger and your raspberries are bigger, and that's not normal. So if you grow your own blueberries and raspberries and then you go in the store and you see the different sizes, you may be able to tell if it's bioengineered. Irradiated foods have a label though to identify them. They have to be labeled if they've been irradiated. But our bioengineered food doesn't necessarily have to be labeled yet. So that's something to be mindful of. And if you guys have heard of hydroponics, that's a new method to produce food. And it's a pretty cool method, and it recycles water and makes more food. So I think some people might be worried that our country could run out of food, but that's not likely going to happen when we can bioengineer it. Okay, so organic foods. These are grown or raised without pesticides, right? So no pesticides, no hormones, no antibiotics, no chemical fertilizers. So yes, I would encourage organic foods, but this has become such a popular trend in the past decade that everybody thinks all organic food is good. And in reality, some of the organic foods you're getting are just a waste of your money. So it's a consumer trick. So you need to be a very smart consumer, because organic foods, they're making everything organic. Like they have a version of everything we eat in organic fashion, and that's just not necessary. It's a way to try to make the consumer think it's going to be healthier, but it hasn't been proven so. So there actually is no research supporting the claim that organic foods are nutritionally superior. They could be safer for some, especially those that may have sensitivity to some of these pesticides and hormones. But I do recommend eating some foods organic, but others I would say don't bother. For instance, pasta and cereal, it's so much more expensive, right? Even if you're paying an extra $2 for your box of pasta, why would you need to eat organic pasta? So, okay, organic foods. So these are the last couple slides here. So this is actually the Clean 15. So these foods are the foods that you can eat that don't have to be organic. So if you get asparagus, avocados, cabbage, cantaloupe, sweet corn, eggplant, grapefruit, these are foods that are actually pretty healthy and normal in the non-organic fashion. So these are the foods that you can go to and eat without having to pay extra for organic. And what do you notice? If you guys kind of put in your chat, maybe I'll see if you guys can notice the difference between these. But what do you notice about these foods that might make them the Clean 15? Why do we not have to buy these foods in organic? Is it because they're fruits and vegetables, or is it because there's something else about them? So think about that. Look at these foods and kind of see what do you think about them makes them the Clean 15? Okay, and then I'm going to go to the Dirty Dozen. So Clean 15 and Dirty Dozen. So these are the foods that you should, if you can, I encourage you to buy organic. Apples, celery, tomatoes, cucumbers, grapes, hot peppers, nectarines, peaches, potatoes, spinach, strawberries, sweet bell peppers, kale, and collard greens, and summer squash. So what do you see the difference between the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen? And if so, what do you think that difference is? Because it's a huge key to kind of, when you go to the grocery store thinking, should I buy that organic? Do I need to buy that organic? How many pesticides are in that food? And just really determine whether you need to buy the food organic or not. So I'm gonna pull the chat up here and see if you guys have figured out okay, so did you guys see the slides? Kayla's telling me that we didn't see the slides. Did you not see the slides? Okay, so Jana said the Clean 15 typically have a protective layer. Yes, that's correct. So if you're buying something organic, it doesn't usually have that protective layer and you're actually eating the outside of it. So an apple, a peach, strawberries, grapes, you're actually eating the skin, the outside skin. So it would be smarter to buy organic because you're eating the outer layer. The Clean 15 have that protective layer. So you don't typically need to buy it organic because you're peeling back that protective layer. So a kiwi and a mango have that protective layer. A banana has that protective layer. Pineapple, papaya. So those are the foods you don't need to bother buying organic. And a lot of the foods I gave you are fruit and vegetable. And some of the other foods that I would really recommend organic would be your meat and your dairy products. So any meat that you're eating, I would really encourage organic because unfortunately, a lot of our meat is pumped with hormones, and they really don't feed the animals properly to give you proper nutrition. So if they're not feeding the animal properly and they're just feeding it hormones to make them get bigger and fatter so they produce more meat so the farmer gets more money, it's not really nutritious for you because then you're actually eating the hormones that the animal has been given. So I highly recommend getting organic meat if you can. It is more expensive, but it also would save you from foodborne illness as well. It would reduce your risk of foodborne illness as well. And then your milk, if you're drinking milk, I would definitely do organic milk, again, because of the hormones. So did you see the slides? Did they not come up?
I didn't know.
Ugh. I wonder if I can try to do it again and just put up especially that last slide and see if it'll show. Can you see it now?
There it goes, yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna put up the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen and see if that will work. And then, can you still see it? Okay. So I'm gonna go to the, if you guys wanna copy this one, I can, of course, if you guys email events, I can send you the PowerPoint as well. But if you wanna just, if you didn't see my slides before, here's one slide that I discussed the safety guidelines, which to most of you, this should be very familiar and you should know a lot of these. And I hope you do practice a lot of these, but some of the others you may not have known, and maybe something was new to you. So those are the safety guidelines, and then I'll put up again the Clean 15. Asparagus, avocados, cabbage, cantaloupe, sweet corn, eggplant, grapefruit, kiwi, mangoes, mushrooms, onions, papayas, pineapples, and frozen sweet peas. And these are just the Clean 15. There's certainly others that you wouldn't need necessarily to buy organic, but these are the cleanest ones. And you notice that a lot of these have that protective layer on them. And then again, the Dirty Dozen, your apples, your celery, tomatoes, cucumbers, grapes, hot peppers, nectarines, and peaches, potatoes, spinach, strawberries, sweet bell peppers, kale, and collard greens, and then your summer squash. So those are really the Dirty Dozen that if you're going to invest in some organic foods, these would be the ones that you'd want to invest in because again, that they don't provide that protective layer. You typically eat that outer layer of these foods. I hope that helps. I hope you guys have learned a little bit about organic versus inorganic and some of the foodborne illnesses. And I'm sure we're all paying more attention to cleaning our food with coronavirus and it really staying on surfaces and just making sure that we're all cleaning a little bit more than we normally do. And I hope people continue to do it. It would certainly help spread the the coronavirus as well as other illnesses in the future. So do you guys have any questions? You can put it in the chat if you have any. I'll wait to see if anybody puts anything in the chat. Or you can just turn your mute button off and ask.
Jackie, did you see Evelyn's question?
I don't. I couldn't see hers. What is it?
Why is eggplant considered clean 15?
No, because you eat the outer layer. Yes. You know, I don't know. It's one of those foods that is not it's not treated with pesticides. I think because a lot of it is grown locally, and a lot of people eat it locally, and and even in your grocery stores, it's more local. And I think that might be why it's a clean 15 and not a dirty dozen. It's a good question, though. I know I ask myself some of these questions myself, like grapes, for instance, right? Grapes, you would think, okay, yeah, I should buy organic, but it's actually hard to find organic grapes and strawberries. Good question, Evelyn. Anyone else have any questions? Was it helpful to kind of see the list of the dirty dozen and clean 15?
It was for me.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I've really paid more attention to, you know, since I learned this in school, just knowing that I think because everybody thinks, okay, I need to buy everything I can organic because organic is just better for you. And it's not, and it's actually not proven to be. So if you're going by science, it's not proven to be more nutritious, but according to the pesticides and things that are put in some of our dirtier foods, you definitely want to pay attention to getting some organic that you think really could be sprayed with pesticides and you're eating that pesticide. So again, food washing is so key if you buy organic or regular food. But apples, peaches, strawberries, those are some of the ones that I really focus on buying organic. But it saves you money if you do realize that the organic trend has really taken money out of the pockets of the consumers. So you really have to be a very smart consumer and make sure that when you look at organic food, you're thinking, well, wait a minute, why would I need to buy this organic? Is it just organic because they're trying to sell at a higher price point, or is this really safer to buy in organic? So like I said, your cereals, your pastas, they do not need to be organic.
Jackie, Evelyn also just asked, would you
say growing your own
of the dirty dozen would be better for you?
Yes, absolutely, because you are choosing how you're growing that food. So if your food is coming from a farm that you don't know where it's coming from, they could be using pesticides, you have no idea. But growing your own food is so much healthier, because it's not being handled by a lot of people either. So then the handling of the food is so much less. And that's why farmers markets are nice too, because it's not going through the middleman, right? It's going from the farmer to you. So from a farmer's market and growing yourself are the absolute best options for a lot of your foods. Obviously not pasta. Although, wait a minute, I make my own pasta. Most people don't, but it is easy. It's actually quite easy.
Okay, Dom just said, is warming your food
Warming your food
plastic
up in
better than styrofoam?
Oof. Slightly, maybe, but either one, not good. So, like I said, the plastic containers and the styrofoam carry those chemicals. And the more you wash them and the more you use them, the less binding the chemical is to the plastic. So now the chemical is seeping into your food as you heat it in the microwave. So styrofoam, plastic, do not put in the microwave. Don't heat your food up in that in the microwave. Switch it to a bowl or buy the glass containers to keep your food in. I tend to use glass containers when I bring my food to work for lunch. I use the glass ones so I can just pop it into the microwave in the glass container, and I don't have to carry it in plastic and then switch it to something else. I just buy those glass containers, and they stay better. They certainly stay better. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of like if you buy a plastic water bottle, which I know we shouldn't do, and sometimes we do it and we reuse it. I do this at practice sometimes, and they say that after a week you need to throw that plastic container out, because again, that the chemicals in the plastic aren't binding to the plastic anymore. So the chemicals are seeping into your water and whatever you're putting in that water bottle. So plastic it really isn't good. Plastic is made with chemicals. So if it's your own container from home, does that matter? Glass only, got it. Yep. Because the older that plastic container gets, again, the more chemicals are going to seep into your food. It's one of those things people don't think about, and I think it's important to put in this food safety, because a lot of people heat up things in the microwave right from the leftover box, right? So it's right from that styrofoam container, or it's right from that plastic container that they're getting. Even cardboard, even if you're heating it up in those cardboard things, those are all made from chemicals. So switch it to a bowl at home and microwave it. Good questions, guys. I hope it was helpful tonight for tonight's dinner. I'll give another minute for any more questions, and then if you guys want the PowerPoint or the list, I can certainly send it to you. And if there aren't any more questions, I'll hopefully see you all next week, next Wednesday at 3 p.m. I enjoy sharing this information a lot. I hope you can tell. I like talking about it.
I know it's been educational for me, so thank you.
Good. We're all cooking more too. That's something that's actually another reason that foodborne illness is more common, because we as Americans have been eating out more. And now that we're kind of bound to eating in more and cooking ourselves, I'm hoping that people are really kind of getting tradition, of cooking more at home, and even getting more recipes in their repertoire. I'm sure Pinterest is quite busy with all these kind of tips on what to do while we're stuck at home with the coronavirus going on around us. All right, guys. I look forward to next week. I'm going to think of something interesting. If you have any suggestions, let me know. If there's something really specific that you would like to know more about, or just in general. I'm trying to pick things that are really relatable today to what's going on, and also some things that maybe you've heard about before, but then other things that you may have never heard about. And if you gain at least one piece of information from these, that's great. Then it's worth your time. All right. Thanks, guys. Hope to see you next week. Have a good week, everyone. Stay safe, stay healthy, cook healthy.
Thanks, Jackie.
Thanks, Kayla.
Thank you. Have a great rest of yourself.
You too.